everybody, to another episode of The Sheriff. Guys, I am extremely excited right now because not only do I have a gentleman with me tonight that is one of my idols, okay? This guy is a goaltender, and I have a special respect for the goaltenders. He's going to be my second goaltender on this show, and he played with a couple pretty good players, including the great one, Wayne Gretzky. Guys, without further ado, the man himself, Kelly Hrudey. How are you doing tonight, my friend?
I'm very well, Sean. Thanks for the invite. I'm looking forward to this. I looked at some of your previous guests, and I'm honored that you've included me with some of those guys, and three of them are good friends of mine.
Well, Kelly, I'll tell you what, I appreciate those kind words, but this is what it is, pal. I'll be straight up with you. We bring characters, idols, role models, go-getters, risk takers, and everything else for the better good on this show. So the reason why you're on it, Kelly, is because you stand out to me, man, as a person that I want to pick their brain. I find that you have an incredible story. We're a big show on awareness, my friend, so I can't wait to get into the mental health part of this show because that's a really big thing that we push, okay?
Yep.
And to be honest, buddy, I really started growing up in the 90s. You know what I mean? When you made your Stanley Cup run with the great one, Wayne Gretzky, I was in grade 5. And I was a kid from Scarborough, Ontario, watching my favorite player, Wayne Gretzky. But what I really noticed was how cool his goalie was. And we're going to get into that too. Kelly, I wanted to start from the beginning with you because I want the listeners to kind of get a gist of your upbringing. So, like I know you're from Edmonton, but were you actually born in Edmonton?
I was born there. We're of Ukrainian descent, so my parents lived up in northern Alberta. Their parents came over from Ukraine many years ago, and that point, if you chose to come to Canada and you chose a place like northern Alberta, they were given free land. They just had to clear the land and work it. So that was a big task, right? To come over and not know much about the culture and not know the language. So we come from really humble beginnings. And then eventually my mom and dad moved to Edmonton. My brother was born there. I was born 4.5 years later. And just a really amazing family, Sean. I won't spend too much time on it, but you know, I think a lot of times I get credit for being kind of like a nice guy or a classy guy, and I take no credit for it whatsoever. It's all my parents, right? They were just the kindest, nicest people. My mom's still around. Lost my dad almost 6 years ago. But the great thing about my dad is he is a really patient person, and that's where I get my patience from. By the way, up until right near the end with my dad, I'd never heard him say a swear word. So that's the kind of man he was, right? It's just
really?
He was just a really nice, gentle man. And my mom, we love dearly. And she was just here last week for a nice visit. So, yeah, I'm just so proud of my family. My brother's doing well. He still lives in Edmonton with his wife and 3 kids. And just, everything's good in our families.
So, you know, I just wanted to add to that, Kelly. Well, first of all, thanks for sharing that. And I just want to add to that, buddy. There's no more length of time that would be too much to talk about your family, buddy, because I need to know about your family because I'm like you're an idol of mine, man. And I like to pick the brains because I find it so interesting, Kelly. People's upbringings, I know it's going to sound cliche, but people's upbringings, man, they really do mold them for the rest of their lives.
Yeah.
And it's amazing. Like I mean, I know we're going off topic, buddy, but the gentleman that you just mentioned, one of your ex-teammates, Jim Thompson.
Yeah.
I mean, when he told me about the trailer park, I was like, wait a second. This isn't any of my talking points. We're going for this. And we talked about it for quite a while. So Kelly, so your parents, I mean, I'm the same as you. Like my mom, same thing. I would say the same thing about her that you just said about your parents. So your parents, you must be extremely close with them.
Yes, absolutely. We were a super close family. And one of the great things about our upbringing, I didn't know it at the time, but we didn't have much money. But what my parents gave my brother and I a fantastic gift. And that was a gift of going to the mountains, because Edmonton's proximity to the Rocky Mountains, right? So the only vacation we could afford, we had a small little travel trailer, and small, I mean really small. And for my parents' vacations, we'd go to Jasper, Banff, Lake Louise, Yoho National Parks, those sort of places, and we'd spend a week or maybe a few more days there. And that gave me a real love and appreciation for our Rocky Mountains. And I'm happy to say, Sean, it's also a gift that I've passed on to my children. My three daughters and their families, they love going to the mountains. In fact, in a week or so, just prior to this NHL season, I'm going back to the mountains with my wife. So we're going to go to Banff and Lake Louise. Again, it's all because of my mom and dad and the beautiful gift they gave us to really appreciate the land. And, you know, it's so close to us here in Calgary also. It's just beautiful.
I mean, you said it perfect. Kelly, I was born in Vancouver, grew up in Ontario. My family moved to Toronto when I was 6, but I was born there, man, and I've been back. And I know what you're saying about the Rockies, man. Just for the listeners out there, because, you know, recently we found out that we're rated in Japan, Kelly. So I got to talk to some of our listeners on the other side of the world. The places that Kelly, thank you. The places that Kelly just mentioned are some of the most beautiful spots in our country of Canada.
100%. And I highly recommend, if you've never been to Western Canada, you have quite a few options, but I would recommend either flying into Vancouver or Calgary or Edmonton and driving from those spots through the Rockies. And you just have to make that drive from Banff to Jasper. It's called the Icefields Parkway. And it is rated, at one point I remember reading, it was rated as one of the 10 most beautiful roads, scenic drives in the world. And I totally agree with that. I look forward to that drive every single time we do it. We're going to do it again this coming trip with my wife and I. And you will not be disappointed with that recommendation.
Yes, absolutely. Quick question for you on this topic. Have you ever done the drive from Vancouver to Kelowna?
Oh, so many times I've lost count.
Okay, so because I was blessed with being able to do that drive with my brother Liam a little while ago now, but I remember it clearly. How does that compare to the Jasper one? Is it comparable or no?
Well, first of all, I'm a big fan of driving. So as a Western Canadian, I think a lot of us that's kind of our way of getting around. You know, we as kids, right? You grow up driving all the time, and an 8-hour drive doesn't seem to be much. But I can tell you that drive from Vancouver to Kelowna is different. It's beautiful. I enjoy going both ways, whichever way. You can go towards Hope and go north through the Fraser Canyon, which is the old, well, it's still actually the #1 highway, but it's a really twisty, turny road right along the Fraser River, which is gorgeous. Or you can go from Hope and sort of head inland and go on the Coquihalla Highway, which is a high mountain pass. And that's stunningly beautiful as well. But I have to say, because of the Rockies, I'm going to put the Icefields Parkway in front of the Vancouver to Kelowna drive. It's just so unique. And the wildlife, and this is not an exaggeration. You might see grizzly bears, you might see black bears, you see moose on occasion, you see all sorts of bighorn sheep, and there's just a unique quality to the Banff to Jasper Highway.
Wow, buddy. I really hope that I can experience that one day. So thanks for the heads up, man, because if I ever have an opportunity and there's options though for the trips, boom, I'm taking that one because of Kelly Hrudey. Right?
But if you do go, Sean, take your time. Like, there are a lot of roadside turnouts. There's a lot of waterfalls. You really should take 15, 20 minutes or half an hour to really explore a little bit. So the road from Banff to Jasper ballpark is around 4 hours, but do it in a full day. Take like 7 or 8 hours and stop and really drink it all in, because it's just gorgeous.
I will, man. I promise you I will.
I like it.
Kelly, when did you decide to be a goalie, dude? I got to ask the goalies this stuff because I'll explain after. But were you always a goalie as a kid, though? Because this is the young Kelly that we're talking right now.
Right. Okay. So my path to becoming a hockey player is pretty different than most other people. So I skated a little bit as a kid. My mom and dad, in fact, had little outdoor rink in our backyard for a while.
Right on.
And then I sort of, I don't know, lost interest a little bit in skating. I don't know why, but I still played all kinds of road hockey and so on with all my buddies in the neighborhood, with my brother. And I remember Saturday nights, this is a really good memory for me, Sean. On our street, we had some neighbors. There were probably about 12 or 15 houses down. And on a Saturday night, we'd watch Hockey Night in Canada. And then when the broadcast was over, my mom and dad would let us go out. It was pretty late by then. It would have been, what, 8 o'clock or something. And we could play with the neighborhood kids some street hockey again. And it was cold back then.
Yeah.
But it was so much fun. And so, but we'd play all different positions, right? I'd play goal for a little bit. I'd play forward. And then my mom and dad were nice enough. Again, we didn't have a lot of extra cash, right? But we were able to go to the local convenience store. It was a 7-Eleven, buy a frozen pizza, warm that up, and watch some TV before we went to bed. But okay, so now I'm 11 years old, and all my friends are playing organized hockey. And I'm thinking, man, I just miss my friends so much. Maybe I'll join a team just because I just wanted to spend more time with my friends, right? That was the only reason why I had any interest in joining an organized league. So I said that to my mom and dad, and they gave me immediately, by the way, they gave me great advice that no, we won't allow you to join a league this year. You have to learn how to skate for a year, and then next year you can join. Okay. So virtually every single day after school, I'd run home, put my books back in the house, grab my skates and my stick, and head to the outdoor rink, which is about 5 blocks away from our house. That's how I got started. That's how I learned to skate. So the following summer, it's probably in around August or so, getting ready for a September start to the hockey season. And I remember playing ball hockey with my buddy, Jeff Marshall. And we're in his driveway, and his dad, Mr. Marshall, comes around the corner. And Jeff and I are kind of talking about what position I might play. And because I had no idea yet. And Mr. Marshall kind of stops and said something like, "Hey, Kelly, I don't want to influence you too much, but whenever I watch all the neighborhood kids play road hockey and you're in the net, you stop the ball way more than everybody else." And so the thought occurred to me. I thought, you know what? That sounds good, because I did really enjoy it. So whatever, 2-3 weeks later down the road, when we had our first practice, that's when I tried it. I loved it, and I never tried another position, because I've always told people this, Sean, that playing that position is intoxicating. It is the one position in the game where each and every goalie can affect the outcome of the game, sometimes positively, sometimes negatively. And having that sort of control of a game to a certain degree, if you want to call it that, that's just a really incredibly powerful thing to be a part of.
Man, I asked every goalie I've played with, Kelly, I've talked to them kind of about this stuff. I've never heard that before. That's amazing. And I like it. I like it because it is a it is a powerful thing.
It right? is. Holy. Yep.
Yeah. Like, I mean, I grew up a defenseman, Kelly. The D-men kind of think that way a little bit, I guess.
Sure.
You know, we got to be more reliable than the forwards. You know, we're the last stop. Really, we're not, because you're the last stop. But that's how D-men kind of think. Like, D-men secretly, like, this is a hockey podcast, so I know we got a lot of D-men listening to this. D-men all think they're smarter than forwards. Like, that's a fact. Oh, that's a fact, man. D-men think that they're the brains of the team. They do. I was a D-man my whole life. I had to play the wing, Kelly, just, at pro, like, to get in the lineup, right? Yeah. But, man, I'm a defenseman, and we believe we're the smartest cats. But all jokes aside, though, Kelly, like, so your buddy's father said something to you in a way, the way he said it gave you that much confidence to try it out, and you never looked back.
Well, I only hesitate with my answer because, yes, at first blush, that would be the best way to surmise that conversation. But also at the same point, you have to remember, I was 12 years old And so I was way behind everybody else, right?
Of course.
Not as though, although you don't get a lot of shots, right, when you're playing pee-wee hockey. And by the way, I wasn't playing at a very high level. That came later in my life. But so it's not like I had tons of success. I wasn't giving up a ton of goals, but simply because I wasn't getting a ton of shots either. But still, I was seeing improvement every single year to a certain degree. And by the way, my favorite goaltender growing up was a guy by the name of Jacques Plante, and then his protege was a guy by the name of Bernie Parent. And if you watch Bernie Parent play, he played identical to Jacques Plante. And so Jacques Plante wrote a book. I think it was called simply Goaltending. And so I bought that book. In fact, I think my brother bought it for me. And I would go through that book nightly and learn about skating techniques and ways to play the position. And it was just a really good learning tool for me.
Wow. So Jacques Plante, he's a pretty big legend.
He's a legend. And
Yeah,
I was lucky enough, John, living in Edmonton, when Jacques Plante's career was coming to an end. He was well into his 40s. I think he had a connection with Glenn Sather. Glenn might have been the coach, general manager. This was the WHA team. And I don't even think they were the Edmonton Oilers at that time. I think they were still called the Alberta Oilers. But yeah. Jacques Plante, I think Glenn Sather convinced Jacques to come to Edmonton to finish off his career. He played something like 30 or 40 games, I believe, as an Oiler. I could be off there, but the point I'm trying to make is once I found out my idol, Jacques Plante, was coming to Edmonton, somehow I raised enough money. My friend and I, again, Jeff Marshall, we went to that Oilers game, and I was actually able to see in person Jacques Plante. I can still vividly remember him in the net, his pads, his pants, his mask, everything. It was just the coolest thing.
That's really cool, man.
Right?
Jeez. Yeah, of course it is. Now I that was actually okay. So the favorite goalie thing, I wanted to ask you that, like as a kid, who your favorite goalie was, right? So thank you, buddy. Hey, I can tell how much of a veteran you are now in the business, because even when you get interviewed, Kelly, you're doing it, man. It's awesome, buddy. It's awesome. Okay, so another thing that I'm really, really curious about, buddy, is now when you get hit by I'm just trying to think of how to word this question.
Yeah.
When you get hit by the puck, right? Even when you were a kid, is that releasing endorphins for you? I gotta know, man. Like it's got to be some kind of a rush.
Yeah, it does. It certainly depends where you get hit and how often you've been hit in that exact same spot. It gives you different feelings, right? It plain old hurts. I have to tell you, the goaltenders today, which is a good thing, they don't experience what we did, and certainly the goalies before me, what they had to endure. Because I remember a conversation. So I'm in my draft year, Sean, and in the Western Hockey League, Billings, Montana had a team for a couple of years. And so we're in Billings after a game, and my coach is a guy by the name of Patty Janelle. And after the game, he says, "Hey, Kelly, can I see you for a minute?" So I go over and he introduces me to Hrudey Pillis. And for hockey historians, they know Hrudey is a very influential person at the time. In fact, I think he was the last coach before Joel Quenneville won the Stanley Cup as a Chicago Blackhawks. So Hrudey Pillis was a big deal. He was at one point the general manager also for the Blackhawks. Now he's scouting for Chicago. And so when Patty made the introduction, I was like starstruck. But anyways, we're having a conversation. I hadn't been drafted yet. That was coming up in the summer. And Hrudey says something to me like, "Kelly, I really like parts of your game, but from time to time you look scared of the puck." I'm like, I remember just blurting out, "Yeah, it hurts." and so that was the position back then. I can tell you this is not an exaggeration, Sean, but let's just say in the 90s still, the equipment was getting much, much better, but your toes are so beaten up. Now they don't have or back then we didn't have the toe protection that the goaltenders have today. Literally, ask any of my teammates, at some point in the season, your toes feel so bashed in and bruised. They're not actually bashed in, but they feel like it. And be in practice, and guys would rip the shot along the ice, and I would honestly lift my foot up off the ice so I wouldn't take another shot off the toe. And so that's kind of how the position was. That's kind of what you deal with, and so on. But it is. You're right about the endorphins. It gets you going. That's for sure. It's and if you really want to see what it was like, if you go to YouTube and Google or punch in Brett Hull and Kelly Hrudey, you'll see a shot where Brett gets me right in the groin and I go down in a heap. And I tried to play, I couldn't. I ended up going to the hospital, but that was not a good memory. I can tell you that.
Maybe one of his one-timers.
It was a one-timer. You got that right. From about 15 feet away, my friend.
Oh, man. Well, goalies around the world probably have nightmares of even having the face haul slap shot or one-timer, right? So at least you can live to say you got through it, even when it hit you there, buddy. Right? Man, I'm glad that you brought up the junior, because that's kind of like where I want to get rolling into right now. So Medicine Hat Tigers, right?
Yep.
Pretty historic team.
Yeah, they are.
Now, what was it? Okay, so this story is even more juicier, buddy, because I didn't know that you started at 12.
Yeah.
And that's like starting. I'm assuming it took a couple years to get in on the travel and stuff, Kelly? Dude, I know we're going a little back, but
no, that's fine. So I played on just community league teams, right? And then finally, when I was 16, my last year playing what they used to call midget hockey, what it was at U16 now, I guess, or U17, and so I go to try out for a team, a rep team. And my history is, Sean, by the way, I would get cut once, twice, 3 times every fall until I found where I was slotted in, right? So I go to this. It's just, to me, it wasn't demoralizing until I was 60. My last year at that age level, I get cut at a rep team. And for the first time in my life, I thought I was done with hockey. I was going to quit, right? And so I get home. I tell my brother my plans not to play hockey anymore. And he says, just do me a favor. Another rep team just called. They heard that you were released and they want you to try out. The tryout's tomorrow. Just go. Give it one more chance. And so reluctantly, I did go. I have no idea, Sean, why they only had one goaltender, but by default, I made it. So that was the first time I ever played on a rep team. So we start off a little bit slowly. By the way, our coaches were incredible. And we finished with a guy by the name of Al Limer that was a real influential man in my life. We just lost Al during the pandemic.
Sorry to hear that.
But Al and the coaching staff had this great feeling for the team. And our other goalie was a guy by the name of Gord Hobbins. And they rotated us every single game. So Gord would play one, I would play one, and we'd continue through the entire league play. We won the city championship. We ultimately went to Calgary. We played Mike Vernon's team. We won the provincial championship. And the reason why I bring all that up, because it's important in the terms of sort of like my growth. So I started, it was at around that age when my career or my game, even though I got cut in September, my game really started to take off and improve. So I get a letter to go to Medicine Hat to try out. Back then, you were sent letters. You weren't drafted like it is today. So
okay,
New West. Invite. Pardon me.
Like an invite.
Yeah, it was. So New Westminster in the Western Hockey League and Medicine Hat both sent me letters. So I chose Medicine Hat because it was closer to home, right? But I had no goal of making the Western Hockey League. I didn't think I was even close to that level. I wanted to play for the St. Albert Saints. They were in the Alberta Junior Hockey League. Doug Messier, that's Mark's dad. He was the coach there. That was ideally my goal. Anyways, I go to training camp. Again, my good friend Jeff Marshall was invited. So we go, and the second day of training camp, I had another legendary hockey person in my corner. Our coach that year was Vic Stasiak. He is he was on the infamous Uke line in the National Hockey League for a lot of years, and just a man you really looked up to. He was a really gentle man also. He kind of reminded me a little bit of my dad, by the way. But anyways, the second day, Vic calls me into his office, and literally within 2 minutes, he tells me that I've made the Medicine Hat Tigers on day 2. And I'm thinking, this can't happen. You know, you remember my history. I told you I've been cut so many times, I've lost count. I always get cut. So I said something like, okay, well, we've got a problem. And he goes, what's that? I go, well, I only brought 2 T-shirts and a pair of jeans. I thought I was going home. I thought right now you were going to cut me.
Yeah.
And we had a bit of a chuckle over that. And I ended up going home later in the week and sitting down with my family, including my brother, and discussing the options and the magnitude, I guess, of, you know, moving away at 17 years old and how it might impact your life. And none of us, we were not from a sporting family, so we didn't know a lot about the Western Hockey League. And so we took the leap, and we had a terrible team season, but I grew again so much in that season. I was faced with so many shots that year, Sean. Like, we were so bad. I think we finished with 37 points, and it was either, for me, sink or swim, and I was able to really, really improve a lot. And then the following year, I got drafted, so it was kind of cool.
Man, so like, this is a couple years in your life, Kelly, that were drastic changes, right?
Yeah, definitely.
Now, do you find that at that time of your life that helped your confidence, like as a person, as a man, like how fast you were developing in hockey?
Man, Sean, that's such a great question, because there's a lot happening in my life at that time. By the way, I was pretty relaxed and carefree at that point in my life, and I didn't have really any responsibilities. But I'll say this, I was a really shy kid growing up, like really, really shy. I think one of my qualities is I was a really good listener, but I was really, really shy. So that experience started to change that a little bit for me. But I also think, you know, I was pretty humble. Like, I was the #1 goaltender, and I played 57 games as a 17-year-old in that league. And yet, if you were to look at my stats at first blush, you'd go, oh my gosh, Kelly was horrible. You know, my goals against average that year, it was 6.17. And like I said, 57 games, but I got tons and tons of shots. In fact, to sort of validate that whole experience for me, at the end of the year at the team banquet, the awards are given out, and I was given team MVP and rookie of the year on that team. So numbers were deceiving for sure. We're a team full of 17-year-olds, right? And so in a league like that, when you have a really young team, you are going to take your lumps, right? And so we did. I remember I got first star in Portland one time. I think I gave up 14 goals and I got first star, but I had 100 and some shots against, right? So you have to look at it and put it all in perspective.
So now, was it after your second year in Medicine Hat that was your draft, right? 1980, right?
Right. Yeah. So
okay.
Mm-hmm.
So sorry, go ahead, Kelly.
There was a magazine back then, something about prospects or something. So I bought it one week, and I'm going through it, and I get to the goaltenders, and lo and behold, my name is in there. It's like, I think I was, I don't know, rated #2 or something. Don Beaupre, whom I knew about in Ontario Hockey League, he was rated above me. And I'm thinking, this can't be right. How in the world am I rated for the National Hockey League draft? I had no inclination, right?
Yeah.
No agent had contacted me, not until after I was drafted, in fact. So going into the day of the draft, by the way, that second year, we had a pretty good run as a team. We went to the Eastern Conference Finals in the playoffs. So we're that close to going to play for the Memorial Cup.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, and then anyways, the day of the draft, my brother and I are at home. My mom and dad had moved to this beautiful new place in West Edmonton. And so in the basement, it wasn't developed in part of it. And so we were playing ball hockey in there. It was so much fun, so many great memories. The phone rings and my brother runs upstairs and he answers it and they say, "Is Kelly there?" So my brother calls me up. We had no idea who's on the other end. I answer the phone and a man introduces himself as Jimmy Devellano. He was the assistant general manager for the New York Islanders at the time. And so he proceeds to tell me that they drafted me in the second round. And it was a very short conversation, but I was just thrilled, as you can imagine. Didn't know that that sort of day would change my life or the direction my life was going to go. Remember how I told you earlier, Sean, that I love the Rocky Mountains? Well, my goal in life, my dream job, I wanted to be a park warden in Banff or Jasper, Yoho, something like that. And so that day, June of 1980, sort of changed that path for me. So I get invited to training camp, and I was to find out years later from Jimmy Devellano that they did not want to draft me in the second round. They felt forced to because they had me rated in the third or fourth round, but they also had Don Beaupre and I rated exactly the same. And so I was drafted 38th overall. Yeah. Minnesota North Stars were drafting 37th and they chose Don Beaupre. And so the Islanders felt that because of that move that I wouldn't be around next time they had a pick. And so they sort of, like I said, sort of felt forced to take me a little bit earlier they wanted, which turned out good because even back then I got a few more bucks in my pocket for a signing bonus for going in the second round, right?
Yeah, for sure. And it's awesome, Kelly, because it's like, I mean, I know it's not the same, but I was a second rounder in the OHL and I loved going to camp knowing that I was the second round pick, right? So you must have had a lot of confidence, man. Like going into camp, being a respectable pick, man. Like, especially, sorry, go ahead.
It's the way my mind works, though, right? That's a really cool thing, right? To go in the second round, but I still knew I had lots of work to do. And so I go to training camp and I had no expectations to play any of the preseason games, of course. And as the camp went on, they were long back then, by the way, way longer than they are today. Yeah. And I was expecting to spend a week or two there before getting sent back to Medicine Hat. But much to my surprise, a couple days before the first preseason game, the notice is put up on the board who's playing in Chicago in 2 days. And much to my surprise, I was one of the goaltenders. Rolly Melanson was the other goaltender. And so, and this is cool because this is not an accident. So we're sitting, by the way, you flew commercial back then, right? Or a lot of it. And so I'm in the middle seat and to my left is Brian Trottier and to my right is Mike Bossy. Can you imagine my good fortune? Seriously, 18 or 19-year-old kid, and I'm sitting between these two legends. They were already legends in my eyes. So we go to Chicago. I play the first 2 periods. I give up 5 on 36 shots, which wasn't all that bad. But it was at that moment when I truly realized how much I needed to improve still to get to that level and play there at a consistent for a consistent amount of time. So that was just, I think the story is that you're really picking up here with me, Sean. There was a lot of growth that happened really quickly and improvement, but I also knew that there was still a lot of work to do.
A lot more to go.
Yes.
Yeah. And I appreciate you saying it like that, man, because that's so humble and so real, right, Kelly?
It was real.
Yeah, for sure. The other thing I want to point out here, brother, is that this NHL franchise that you got drafted to in 1980, for people that aren't big hockey fans that have maybe recently got into the sport, I mean, would you agree the team was a dynasty at that time?
100%. So that was after they had won their first of 4 consecutive Stanley Cups.
Yeah.
Seriously, you go in that dressing room, and I think to this day there's 5 guys that now in the Hockey Hall of Fame, and all the supporting cast were equally as important and just as impressive in my eyes. And So that was another thing that I really had going for me. I was like, that's like going to the best university in the world, right? You're learning from the best, how to be a pro, how to work on your consistency, make sure that it's great to have one good game and be proud of yourself, but to string 12 or 15 together in a row, maybe have kind of a soft game and then get back on that consistent track. That's some of the things that I learned back then, and just the fiery competitiveness of all those guys.
Man, I can't even imagine that. Like, it would be like going to Edmonton after that fourth year that the Islanders, right?
It
like
was.
It's incredible.
Yeah, and you're so right. And so for a person like me and many others that have been drafted, if you're lucky enough to go to a franchise like those that are really, really strong and have this model of success that they've sort of patterned their entire franchise around, you're given a much better chance of success in the National Hockey League.
Yeah. So now, Kelly, you go to this camp, you get the exhibition game, right? You get the preseason game. So you get a little sniff. You get a sniff of it. You know the work you got to do. You go back for a third season in junior, okay? But now you're starting pro, okay? So now I know that so your third year pro it was when you first got your first shot, right? It was your third year pro, I believe, because it was October 8th, October 8th, 1983.
Yeah.
Against the Washington Capitals.
Okay.
How did you find out that you got called up for that game?
Okay, so I was the only rookie. They had just won their fourth consecutive cup. So I was the only rookie to make the team out of training camp. So when you have a team that's stacked like that, it's very difficult for a rookie to crack that lineup. But I think there were some issues in terms of waivers and some other things behind the scenes that I don't really know much about anymore. But so I was with the team, and in fact, that was my first win in the National Hockey League, Sean, but it's not one that I tend to really focus on. It was and the reason why I didn't start that game, Rolly Melanson started, and he got pulled, I think, going into the third period. Okay. I think we won in overtime. The score would have been something like 8-7 or something. I gave up only one in the game, but even though it's my first win, it was actually my first start and my next win. That was the one that's more memorable to me. So a few weeks later, I get a start. We're playing in Buffalo in the Memorial Auditorium, one of those great old historic buildings. And we're playing the Sabres against Gilbert Perreault. And I don't know if the entire French connection was still around at that point, but Gilbert Perreault had a glorious scoring chance on me with about 2.5 minutes to go. I made a left pad save. We won 3-2. I remember undressing as quickly as possible, doing the media, and then trying to find a payphone to call my mom and dad because, of course, they weren't satellites back then, so they couldn't watch the game. But I just remember basically bursting at the seams and being so excited to tell my mom and dad that we won that night.
Man, that's fantastic, and such a great feeling, Kelly. Like to be able to share that.
Yeah.
Like, like it's like you got it. You just want to share it, right? And it's incredible. I totally hear what you're saying, buddy, and I appreciate you sharing.
Before you go on, Sean, I want your viewers to tell me about, you played one game in the National Hockey League for Buffalo. Tell me about that experience and what your reaction was after the game.
Okay, so for me, Kelly, it was very, very unique, okay? Because I grew up in Scarborough, so I'm a Toronto boy, okay? You're very familiar with Toronto.
Yep.
Now, I get drafted by Buffalo, right? And this is my first year pro. This is when I'm 20 years old, okay? I'm an 8th round pick, right? On my entry level. I get told by Randy Cunnyworth that I'm getting called up. I got the call. I'm going to the show. He tells me after practice, like most guys find out. I go up to the big club. I'm up there for about 3 or 4 days, even though it was one game. It was a big experience, right?
Yep.
but we're playing the Toronto Maple Leafs, buddy.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. So this is what it was for me. And you're the special guest here, so I'm going to be as quick as possible. When I found out from Cunny that I got called up, Kelly, the first thing I did was buddy, I mean, I was a fourth liner. I was young. We're supposed to stay after practice. You know that.
Oh, yeah.
Right off the ice. Right into the change room, trying to find my jeans and get my cell phone, because this was 2002. Okay. Yeah. But I mean, I know you had to go to the payphone, but this is for the call up. Call my mom right away. Mom, I just got called up. Oh my God, Sean, that's amazing. Who are you playing? Toronto. Right? So now, Kelly, you're the Hockey Night in Canada guy right now. Okay. Hockey Night in Canada, Saturday night, at the time, ACC. Trust me, man, it was wild, buddy. Cool. Wild. But hey, man, when I get called on your show, we're going to talk about me. You're the special guest on my show, Kelly. So we're talking about the legend, Kelly. Okay, so I'm just joking, buddy. But so now this is what I really wanted to get into, and because I'm a stat guy, and I know that you are too, just by talking to you for this little time that we've talked. Would you say that you're a stat guy as well?
You know what, I believe in a lot of it. I think I'm not big in trivia, but I am big on certain stats that sort of make my point or sort of fill in the gaps to make whatever you're trying to say credible.
Makes perfect sense.
Yeah.
So now, when I was looking at your stats,
do
you know what I saw? I saw the first 5 seasons that this man played in the National Hockey League. He had not only winning seasons, but very good records, man. You started your career with a bang, Kelly, including your first season. Buddy, you were 7-2.
Yeah, I didn't get many starts that year, right? Because we were carrying 3 goalies. We had Billy Smith, Rolly Melanson, and myself. It was my second year where I started to really believe in myself. I remember one story, Sean, that really puts it in perspective for me when my career, when it sort of validated that I truly believed I was a National Hockey League player. We're in preseason, my second year. We bus to Philadelphia to play in the Spectrum, which was a tough building, by the way. But for whatever reason, that building, I just loved it. It suited me, suited my personality. The fans were crazy. They're wild. It was a hostile environment. I remember standing in the Zamboni entrance 2 hours before the game or whatever, the bus pulled up, and I had a brand new suit on. And I remember looking around in the stands. Of course, they're empty. And I just remember saying something affirmative to myself, like, you belong here. This is where you belong. And that was a point in my career, I think, that really it was something important that I needed to tell myself to have that belief. And that's when, as you mentioned, then I went on a bit of a run with the Islanders. We had really good teams, right? So
yeah,
there weren't a lot of struggles with those teams.
Man, I mean, you had a good team, Kelly, but you must have played really well to have those kind of numbers, though, brother. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I couldn't believe it. I'm like, wait a second. I mean, I know you didn't play a lot that first year, but I'm like, wait a second. This guy was 7-2 his rookie year. Wait a second, his second year, I couldn't get over it. So I got to give credit when credit's due, man. I don't think I've seen, especially a goaltender, start their NHL career with such success. So,
wow. Well, thanks.
Hats off to you, man.
Thanks.
You know what I mean? So the other thing so now I'm getting really excited, Kelly, because this is the part that now I'm at the age where I'm starting to watch hockey. I'm already playing, but now I'm going to my grandfather's house every Saturday night. I'm watching hockey night in Canada when I'm in elementary school. That was my Saturday night routine. If I didn't have a game, going over to my grandpa, my great uncle Frank, drinking hot chocolate, raisin bran toast, and watching hockey night in Canada, right? So now I have a little story here, okay, and I want you to finish it, Kelly. So, and I know you're going to remember right away, but you know, you can play the role if you like. After a 6-5 loss to Detroit, Al Arbor told me to stay in town, that they wanted to rest me.
Yeah.
Okay. So sure enough, the next morning, I get a call from Bill Torrey, who was your GM at the time,
Mhm.
and he told me what, Kelly Hrudey? What did he tell you?
That's right. He told me that I was traded to the Los Angeles Kings. And I tell you what, I was pissed at Bill Torrey. I was so mad at him. I felt betrayed. I knew the day before, Sean, that I was going to get traded. My wife woke me up from my pregame nap saying that our lawyer had called and he had from a good source that I was getting traded. So it really surprised me. First of all, you know, we didn't have social media for rumors and all that. But I was really surprised when I got to the rink that nobody told me that I was getting traded, even though I knew it was a fact. And so I played that night against Detroit. And although I had plenty of bad games in my life, that might have been my worst game as an Islander because I had no interest in playing, right? I was already checked out. I thought that if I'm getting traded, I kind of thought it was unfair that I was playing, really.
Yeah.
Right? You know, if you're in that situation, why would you play the guy? The guy has nothing invested in the game. So anyways, I get to Bill Torrey's office. He tells me that I'm traded, and then he went in. We spoke, I guess, for another 10 or 15 minutes, of which I don't remember more than the first minute because it didn't seem important to me. But the good thing I do remember, and I heard this many times afterwards, that Gretzky was one of the big reasons why I was traded. He and I got to know each other in the '87 Canada Cup. And when he got to LA, he figured, with all due respect to my buddy Glenn Healy, that I love dearly, Wayne thought that it would be good if we had some help in net. And so over the course of time, our season was going south in New York at that point. And at one point, Bill Torrey finally relented and made the move. So it turned out to be something that I was really furious, like I mentioned. But it turned out to be the best move of my life. Like, we played there the next 8 years. I played another 2 in California and San Jose. But those 10 years, I think, for me, Sean, were the biggest growth professionally and personally. And I was a perfect age. I think did I go to LA at 28, I believe, something like that, years old. So there's a lot of growth happening in you as a person. And that's what really happened to me in that move.
Yeah, man. And like when I was reading about the move, you classified it as the best 8 years of your life.
Yeah.
Do you still stand by that?
I do. You know, it's different now because I'm a 60-year-old man. So I've had other stretches in my life that have been even better than that. But at that point, what I meant when I said that time, my mindset, those 8 years playing in LA were just fantastic. We had a great family life. We went to the beach a lot. We went to the theme parks. We really tried to experience life in a really different way than how my wife had grown up, how I grew up. And we wanted to live at the beach because we knew at some point we'd be moving back to Canada and in all likelihood to the prairies where we are now. And so we wanted to experience California and beach life. And we did just that. That was the hockey was fantastic. Don't get me wrong. But in combination with the hockey and the lifestyle that we had, it was really special.
That's exactly what I want to talk about right now, Kelly. Because I got to make some comments here, buddy. As a big hockey fan, okay? Now, first of all, listen, dude. You beat my Toronto Maple Leafs, okay? To get to the finals, all right?
Yay.
I was very upset with you, Kelly Hrudey. I was so mad at you, man. But okay, let me put those feelings aside for a second. So now, you mentioned the lifestyle. Dude, you guys, at that time, it was still kind of a new thing for an NHL team to be in the South, right?
Yeah.
Now, it's not just the South. This is Hollywood, man.
Yeah.
Okay, this is Hollywood. Now, let me tell you, from a hockey guy looking at your team, like as a fan, what you guys look like to the fans, okay?
Okay.
First of all, I need to ask you this, dude. What? I thought it was the coolest thing ever. But what was under your helmet, dude, when you played? Was it a bandana? What was it, Kelly Hrudey?
It was, and that started in New York. I always had long hair, even as a kid. And from my final year in junior, I wore contacts when I played. And for anybody out there, especially back then in the 80s and 90s, the contacts weren't quite as evolved as today's. And so the sweat would really bother me and even affect my vision to a certain degree. So I wore all different kinds of headbands, but I couldn't find anything that I thought was absorbent enough. And so one day, I don't know if you'd remember, Sean, but we had these like Stanfield pajamas that we wore underneath our gear, and it was light blue in color.
Yeah.
And so before practice on Long Island, I just cut one of those T-shirts up and wrapped it around my head like a bandana. And lo and behold, after practice, I thought, you know what, this is pretty darn good. This is what I'm going to try. And so over the course of time, I just kept experimenting with different cuts and things like that. And it became a trademark of mine, of which near the end of my career, I absolutely hated it. But nonetheless, I had created that, so I had to stick with it.
Bro, you created it, but you embraced it, and you made it look, no, but Kelly, I'm being serious, man. You made that look so cool, I can't even explain. So now let me get to my point now. Okay. You're playing for the LA Kings. You guys have the great one, Wayne Gretzky, on your team. Now, when you first got there, I was pretty young still, but 91, 92, 93, those years, I was watching, okay, buddy? Now, you got Barry Melrose as your coach. Yep. You can't get any more Hollywood than a guy like that.
100%, right?
Okay, thank you. You got Wayne Gretzky as your top, the face of the team, face of the league, but face of your team, okay? You got this goalie, Kelly Hrudey, that has like this, most of the time, I don't know if it was every time, but I just remember teal blue, like you said, that blue. I remember always seeing the blue, and it came out of the back of your helmet, dude. And as a kid watching, it was so cool, Kelly. You were so unique. It made you stand out so much. The fact that you were a good goalie was just like the cherry on top. But man, I'm telling you, man, for kids playing street hockey, you and your boy playing street hockey, the kids that time, you had goalies with bandanas. I'm Kelly Hrudey. No, I want to be Kelly Hrudey. No, I'm Kelly Hrudey. I'm telling you, man, you guys were so Hollywood. It was so cool to watch you guys, but I just wanted to kill you, man. When you beat my Doug Gilmour and Toronto Maple Leafs, I was heartbroken, man. I was such a diehard Leaf fan as a kid. Everyone in Toronto was, right?
Well, I've heard that from many people. That's a compliment. Oh. Every time I'm walking the streets downtown and people recognize me, many of them share similar stories how they just hated me, and I thank them every time.
Hey, man, that was like the closest that we came, man. And I believe that, I'm saying we as if I was on the team, but yeah. I believe that if Doug Gilmour and those guys had knocked you off, yeah. I think that, well, of course, I'm a Leaf fan, but I think they probably might have won the cup that year, man. You know what I mean?
Team. They were a very good team. They were a very good team the next year as well. Didn't they beat Vancouver to go to the conference final again?
Yeah, I think so.
Or no, they lost to Vancouver. That's right. Because
they lost to Vancouver when the Russian Rocket was there, right?
That's right. And yeah, so Toronto was a great team. And by the way, you mentioned Doug Gilmour. Wendell Clark was amazing. I thought Felix Potvin was phenomenal. So lots to admire about that team.
Yes, lots to remember. Lots to admire and remember. And as a Torontonian, man, that was like our team, man. That we still relate to those years and stuff. Like it was pretty cool stuff. Yeah, but man, so now the other thing I wanted to get into here, buddy, is I know that the Stanley Cup run with the Kings that you did with Gretzky, that year alone. How long did that season feel like, Kelly? Like, you know what I mean? Like, you guys went, was it 5 or 6 games in the finals? Was it 5?
We lost in 5, yeah.
Okay, it was 5. But it was also the middle of June?
It would have been. I don't remember the exact date, but if I'm not mistaken, I think that was the first year that the Stanley Cup was handed out in June in history.
The extended season. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, not extended season, but just like time wise, the calendar wise, it was extended.
Yeah. Back then, did we play 84 games? Because we had neutral site games back then that most people don't remember. If I'm not mistaken, I think every year we played 2 neutral site games. And one of the reasons why I remember that, because I kind of had like a mental health episode. I didn't know it at the time. I didn't know what I was going through, but I had a real hard time in December and January of that year. In fact, I went into the biggest slump of my life, and it happened to be a night in Milwaukee. So that's a very vivid memory. And to your point about the length of the season, it was such an up and down season for our team, because Gretzky was out with an injury, extended injury. We didn't know, in fact, that, and I don't know if a lot of people know this, the extent of his injury could have been career threatening. People didn't know if he'd ever play again.
Really?
I don't know.
What was it, Kelly?
He had a neck injury. It was from the 91 Canada Cup where Gary Suter, I think, cross-checked him into the boards. Mm-hmm. And this injury became worse over time, and he had to have like very serious surgery. And fortunately for us, Wayne, of course, was able to come back. But throughout all this, we got off to a great start, even without Wayne. And then I started to struggle mightily. Finally, in around February or March, we started to get our game back quite a bit. And of course, as you know, we played really well to get to the finals. But it was a really up and down season.
Yeah, I mean, it was that was a roller coaster for you guys, 100%. But I just have to add to one point. See, I mean, Wayne made it back. You know, like he played really well in the playoffs. Obviously, right? He was so disciplined that he didn't take any high sticking penalties whatsoever.
Oh my gosh, what a surprise! A Torontonian bringing up that play.
Dude, we'll never forget it. We can't believe it. But you know what? It is what it is. It's just funny though, because we are talking about that, so I had to mention it, right? So no, yeah, man. I know I had to, man. So no, Kelly, like we were mentioning before the recording, we're a big show on awareness here at the Sheriff Podcast, right? Yeah. And one thing that I was telling you, like all the things I admire about you, but one of the things that I really admire about you, bro, is how brave you've been publicly on being a mental health advocate, and also talking about your own personal experiences, man. I can't even tell you how valuable that is for someone that needs to hear it. Kelly, I'm telling you, man, you made such a big impact. Do you mind sharing, like, when you first decided that you were going to go public and try to help others with this?
Yeah, I don't mind sharing. Thanks for bringing it up, Sean. In fact, I find this is really cool. 2 grown men talking about mental health, because that wouldn't have been the case maybe 10 years ago or before that. It would have been a silent topic, and all of us would have just suffered alone, and that's not healthy whatsoever. So just sharing these conversations is very important to our family. So it started with us getting to know more about mental health and the seriousness of it when our daughter Caitlin, she's our youngest, and by the way, I loved how you tagged moregooddaysclothing.com on the Instagram post. That's very cool, and we really appreciate it. Thank you very much.
We love it. We're all about it, buddy.
Right. And so Caitlin was going through a lot of mental health issues, of which we didn't recognize prior to when her life became unmanageable. This was in the summer of 2005. She was diagnosed with OCD and anxiety when she was 12, but I personally believe stuff was happening for about a year before, of which we missed the signs. But I don't really have any regrets or anything. I don't carry any shame about missing it, because we didn't know what the signs were. We didn't know trouble was lurking, but we're just fortunate enough that we were able to get her the help that she needed. And so she had some good days, and she was getting better. She's been given the tools. After about 4 years, she came to us and said, Mom, Dad, I'm starting to have more good days than bad. That was a really profound statement. I really truly believe that's the genesis of the clothing line they have. And then she tried to go to university in Kelowna in 2012. And unfortunately for her, all the thoughts came back and it became completely unmanageable. She went to a really dark place. So we had to bring her home, but she immediately got in to see her psychologist again. And quicker than I think I expected, Sean, she was able to get back to more of a normal. And so at the CBC, we had a publicist, James Lamont, and James and I had talked many times in private about Caitlin's struggles and journey and so on. And he thought at one point before Kate went to Kelowna that it'd be really helpful for people if we shared her story.
Yeah.
As you can tell, it didn't go well in Kelowna. So when we brought her home and she started to really get to a really good place again, I brought it up again. I said, would you be interested in sharing your story again? And she was. She was more than happy to do it. She's so brave, as you know. I know you're aware of her story. And so we went public in a really big way. The National Post, Joe O'Connor did an amazing article, and Lauren LaRose with Canadian Press wrote another article just as beautiful, they both captured her spirit in different stories, but it was so beautiful. And so the reaction was amazing. And then, so Caitlin has been sharing her story for many years. And then all of a sudden in 2019, well, by the way, I wrote a book, I think in 2018, and the last chapter I wrote was my experience in Milwaukee that night. And I shared my mental health episode or breakdown, whatever I was going through in the book. And, you know, for me, Sean, so that was 92, 93. I basically didn't share or didn't suffer with anything. I was just pretty normal. No, from time to time, we all get anxious. So you can't deny that. And we all have certain quirky little things that we do. And my kids for years have now been talking about my OCD and, you know, the things I have to do, my so-called routines and things but it was all manageable until the summer of 2019. And then life started to get the best of me. I was a 58-year-old man. And that's why it's important to share that it can happen to anybody. It can happen to you at any point in your life. And I started to get all these thoughts, and the loop was going round and round and round in my head, and I had no tools. So at that point, it was a really difficult hockey season for me to get through, dealing with what I was going through mentally. And so I talked to my family, then I went to see somebody to help me with my mental health, and it was the best move I've ever made. I continue to see somebody. I'm happy to say I'm doing really well. I had a setback again, but that's to be expected, right? You know, the important thing about this is just talk to somebody. Now, here's another thing that I believe is important, Sean. I like to share my story, and I get a lot of really positive feedback, but it's not for everybody. We have somebody really close to us that also has mental health issues, and they don't share their story. We know, but the important thing is they're getting the help that they need. And that's my thing. If you're able to share it with people and it gives you some comfort and allows you to move forward, great. But if you're not, just promise yourself you'll still get the help, because it's amazing how it changes your life.
It is amazing. And like, I want to thank you again, because Kelly, like a lot of people look up to you. A lot of people have been following you for so long. I've been a fan of yours for so long. So to see someone like you being brave enough and talking about it, and like, I understand the point that you just make. Sharing isn't for everyone, right? It's about addressing what you need to get addressed.
Right.
But the fact that your platform allows so many people to see that it's okay to not be okay, and
Yeah.
like Michael Landsberg says, like sick but not weak, right?
Yeah, totally. And so that's why it was really important that when Caitlin and her husband Hayden launched that moregooddaysclothing.com company, that I wanted to wear some of their shirts, do it. I remember a conversation, Sean, this is, like I said, how profound that statement was with Caitlin. I've got another profound statement that I want to share with everybody. my good friend Ron McLean and I were talking a few years ago. It happened to be on Bell Let's Talk. So Michael Landsberg's incredible project that he's raised hundreds of millions, I believe. And
Really?
Ron and I were texting back and forth. And to sign off, he sent me just an incredible line. He said, "Inner peace, what a quest." Like, doesn't that just really capture what all of us are trying to get to? You know, inner peace. We all want more good days. Just this conversation is so incredible for me, and it's so beautiful that we're sharing it.
Inner peace, man, that is probably the most important thing that you
Right?
can have, right?
Yeah.
I think that this is important because there's more people that are affected by this than people know.
Oh, yeah.
Okay. The fact that, what would you say? Not, I wouldn't say 5, 10 years ago, no one was really talking about it at all, Kelly.
No, no,
Right?
no.
And I mean, I want to get into a little bit more about like your son-in-law and your daughter.
Yeah.
You know, so they start this clothing line.
Hmm.
How long ago did that start?
Oh boy, because of the pandemic and the NHL season, I've sort of lost track of time. I think all of us admit to that. That it's kind of like a blur. But I'm only going to say about 7 or 8 weeks ago, something, or months ago, and
Yes.
yeah, it's not long ago. And I'm happy to say they're doing really quite well. It's a small company, keep in mind. And by the way, if somebody goes to their website, you'll be happy to see they have brand new stock in, brand new designs. I'm wearing one of the older ones
Right
today.
on.
And but
Did you want to just stand up a little bit, buddy, just so we can get that in, because we'll probably do like a screenshot. Man, that's such a cool shirt too.
right,
I really like that.
let me
Those ideas.
let me
That's
explain here, Sean. So this is what Kate and I used to have to do with her when she was first diagnosed, and really at the beginning when she was really in a bad place. We had to do lots of breathing exercises. People out there know about this. This is no secret formula or something. Breathing exercises are important for all of us. You know, whether you're having a mental health episode or just daily life, we need to breathe. You see golfers all the time on the course before a big putt or something, or a big drive, they take a nice big deep breath. But anyways, we would have to breathe. And for people out there that have been doing it themselves or with family members or friends, these breathing exercises can take from an hour to maybe 3 or 4 hours, depending on what state they're in and what level of discomfort they are mentally. And so this beautiful garden right here was where we tried to get to Caitlin with her breathing exercises. So it might take us a couple hours to bring her down from a 10 on the scale, 10 being the worst, and to bring her level down to, hopefully we could get it down to a 7 or a 6 over the course of a couple hours. And she wanted to get to her garden, which is her safe place. And so this garden, she'd go out there in her own mind. She wasn't physically there, but through these breathing exercises, it'd be a really drab place to start with. No color, literally no color in her mind. And then over the course of time, breathing, and then there'd be more color in the garden. She'd see leaves, green leaves on the trees. She'd see green grass. Our dogs might come into the picture. And so it became a place of color and a really beautiful garden to her. And that's what her husband drew, this beautiful little garden. He's a great artist, by the way. That's his occupation. And so it really has deep meaning to us when we look at these shirts and we see there's always something in there about breathing or more good days, or a picture of a beautiful garden with the tremendous colors that Hayden puts into this artwork. And it's a really deep meaning. And I know a lot of people, because I get the messages, people really have an attachment to this project because it means something to them as well.
Yes, of course. Now you are now the official spokesperson, right, for your son-in-law and daughter?
Hey, I just feel so proud of them that whenever and I have to admit, I apologize to everybody out there. If you follow me on social media, I've taken a big break during this, the last 3 months. I rarely post anything. I'm just trying to recharge for the upcoming season, but I will start to post again and reconnect with all the people that enjoy some of my posts on social media.
Yes, of course. Now, Kelly, I just want to add to the last 2 years statement that you made.
Mm-hmm.
Dude, because of the pandemic.
Yeah.
The last 2 years, I don't know if it's been the longest 2 years or shortest 2 years of my life.
Yeah, I know.
I get you, man. I don't know what has happened. It has been a blur.
Yeah.
There's been so many distractions, lockdowns, all this stuff happening. Right?
I'm with you. I think all of us feel in the same boat. It doesn't matter where you're from or what you do, or I think that we all feel the same way, and it comes in waves. Sometimes, I feel really stressed out about what we're going through. Sometimes I feel, okay, we're on the right path here. And then we're always looking out for our kids, and we have grandchildren now, and not that they're aware of the pandemic, but we still worry dearly about them and stuff. And so all of us are under great deals of stress. Sometimes it's more manageable than others. And that's why, I think you see my messages, Sean, on social media. They're all about love and compassion. And it's not about tearing people apart. It's all about, maybe if we're trying to learn something in this pandemic, it's all about love. Let's love each other and let's be better for this.
Exactly. And I mean, Kelly, the thing is that also during the pandemic, like I know what you're saying about the kids, that they don't really know what's going on, but then at the same time, I look at the kids and they're growing up seeing people wearing masks and stuff, and like they can't even see our faces, man. And like we're humans, we're supposed to be seeing our faces, right? And like so I feel bad for them, dude. I see the stats. Kelly, I see the stats on domestic, on abuse with the children, on spousal abuse, all this type of stuff, and it skyrocketed. The suicide skyrocketed last 2 years, brother, and that's why I find, but that's why I find right now guys like yourself, guys like Michael Landsberg, you guys are so valuable to the world, especially now. And that's why it's such a big deal, Kelly, that you keep doing what you're doing, brother, because this is when we need you the most, man. Yeah. And I'm talking on behalf of the whole world.
Well, that's very kind, Sean. So just so you know, it won't stop. I won't stop. We're only going to get louder. And I encourage other people with social or mental health issues to continue to share your story. Let's get loud. Let's force governments to throw more money towards resources for people with mental health issues. It's not right in our country that people have to wait in a queue for months to see somebody. And so that's the greatest work I've ever done, Sean. My family, myself, talking about mental health issues. I'm proud of my playing days and my broadcasting days, but it doesn't even compare to what we've done in the field of mental health.
Yes. Now, because we're still on the subject, I really like the t-shirt.
Yeah.
I know that when we do the poster where we have that t-shirt, a lot of people are going to be reacting to it. It's pretty cool stuff. How do I find it, Kelly? How do I get a hold of More Good Days, man?
Yep. Just moregooddaysclothing.com, and you'll go right to the site, and everything's there. They have, like I said, a number of new designs for the fall. Some that I'm super excited about that it just pops out at you. The artwork is amazing, and the ideas, and everything's there. It's shipping. They'll ship it out to you. They can ship to the States. Just be patient, though, if you see something, because when we do things like this, the podcast and something, they usually go on a run and they might sell out rather quickly, but they're always ordering in new things. So be patient and go back to the site, and hopefully you can get your clothing in no time at all.
could they do any international shipping, like other than North
Huh.
America?
That I don't know. I'm going to have to ask, or I suppose if you go to their website, I'm sure there's a way that you can ask that question.
Exactly. So the website is obviously the most valuable way to get all the information for More Good Days.
You can go look at their social media sites. They have a site on Instagram. Do believe they have a Twitter page as well, but I know for sure Instagram.
Yeah, I started following them today on Instagram.
Yeah.
More Good Days clothing. And man, there's some really, really cool stuff there, Kelly. You guys have a lot of things to be proud of, man. I actually was pretty impressed, my friend. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
Yeah, man. 100%. Kelly, I know we've gone over the time limit, right? And I apologize, but I'm a big fan of yours, buddy. So I was just like, I'm not letting this guy go anytime soon. Dude, the thing is that your story is so big, it's so interesting that, bro, I didn't even get into like half the things. Like, I'm an aspiring broadcaster. We didn't even get into the broadcasting stuff. So I gotta ask you this now, Kelly. Like, I don't know if you had any fun in the last little bit, but dude, would you come for a part 2? Not. I know you're gonna be busy, but like eventually, because I really need to get everything else off the table here, man.
Sean, you've got it. You have my promise that at some point I'll come back and we can talk on different things and maybe get into my broadcasting a little bit. But just so you know, I really had a great time, and what you're doing is really impressive as well. And so I want to say good luck. And by the way, tell Kyle that we send him his best with his young family.
Oh, yes, 100%. And dude, just so you know, I mean, there's that illegal stick story, you know what I mean, against the Canadians. There's the broadcasting stuff, like the Vegas Golden Nuts. There's a bunch of things, man, that I wanted to get into. So, I mean, they're fun things, right? We're going to get there, buddy. We're going to get there. I needed to talk about the mental health stuff because it's so important, Kelly. So thank you for sharing all that kind of stuff. Keep doing what you're doing. More Good Days. I love that inspiration. When she first said that to you, I think I'm having more good days than bad, mom and dad. And, you know, that's inspiration behind the clothing line. There's nothing more real than that. There's nothing more beautiful than that. So you guys got to keep going. It's incredible.
Thanks,
I want to thank our listeners for tuning in to another episode of The Sheriff with our special guest, Mr. Kelly Hrudey, Mr. Hollywood, the guy that made hockey interesting in the 90s. Here he is, man. I couldn't believe it. Thank you for joining us again, Kelly. And for the listeners, we'll see you again soon. Thanks for tuning in. Woo!